Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be talking about uh, domains, websites, emails for your business. This is a Grow with Google presentation, and I'd like to just thank the Grow with Google team for allowing us here at Treasure Valley Score to use this content to share with you in hopes that this will give you some insight, especially if you are starting a business, give you some insight into what goes into having a good domain for your website and how email plays a role in that. I know it seems kind of a small chunk of things, but this is actually very important. And I'd just like to welcome you all today. And let's get started. So, introduce myself. My name is John Walker. I'm the Chief Solutions Officer for TE Digital. We are a digital marketing agency. Here is my contact information. I am also a Treasure Valley Score. I'm a Score volunteer. I assist the chapter here in Boise, Idaho, with with technical support, like, for example, putting on these presentations. I've been fortunate over the last 10 years or so to speak to hundreds of small business owners about digital marketing. And I'm just really happy to be part of the Treasure Valley Score family in the sense that our business was a Score, we were a Score client uh, when we first started. So this is just TE Digital's way of giving back to the small business community. And for those of you who do not know about Score Services, first let me see if I could get a show of hands. If you could just put a yes in the chat box if you have used, or yes or no, if you have used Score Services before. Just put a yes or a no in the chat box. That would be cool. Russell is a yes. Awesome. Got some more yeses, a couple no's. If you, Mark is a no. So hopefully, Mark, what I can do, and for those of you who have not engaged with a Score mentor, that you will be able to at least feel comfortable enough to sign up for a mentoring session. The good thing about the mentoring sessions, it's one-on-one. It's really focused about your needs as a business owner. Maybe you have some questions about, certain aspects of your business that you need some professional advice on, and that's where Score comes in to help. Not only do we do the one-on-one mentoring, but also we host local workshops. There will be live workshops. And just so you know, Score has over 300 chapters across the country. So no matter where you're viewing this webinar from, there's probably a Score chapter near you that you can tap into. And of course, one of the best things about, the technical age these days is that you don't actually have to be in the same location to have a good experience with some good business advice. So I highly encourage you to check out our Score counselors at score.org/Treasure Valley. We're looking to build long-term relationships with you as a business owner throughout the life of your business. And the best part about Score Services is that free services cost you nothing to engage with a Score counselor. So I highly recommend that you take advantage of that. So now that I've gotten that part out of the way, let's talk about the importance of a domain name and some of the steps you should use in deciding what your domain name should be. But before we really get into that, let me ask you a question. Have you already selected a domain for your business? Do you have one that really conveys what your business is about? You can always go back and rethink and reimagine your domain presence on the web, even if you've been out there for a long time. That's all part of rebranding your business, but this may be an opportunity for you to really kind of take a look at your online presence, starting with your domain, and really making that a very powerful piece of your business identity. So as we go through this, feel free to ask any questions in the questions box of your Zoom console there. And then I will try to get to them at the end. If I see a question that is timely as we're talking about items, then I will address them there. But usually I like to try to get through the content and then we can have a discussion about the questions you have. So for a show of hands in the chat box, what side of the house are you on when it comes to your domain? Are you using a shared domain, like for example, sites.google.com? Or do you have a branded domain like stasisbakery.com? Just put a show of hands. Actually, put your domain name in the chat box. And then that way we can all visit your website. So let's do that. And there's a couple of reasons why you want to go with the more branded approach using a professional domain. I see we have Travelers Ranch Resort.fun. That is a very cool domain name, Brenda. I like it that you used an extension outside of .com, .org, .info. You're using a domain extension. I'll talk a little bit about that. You're using a domain name extension that kind of speaks to your business. And that is a really great example. So kudos to you. We have Papa's Workbench, LLC.com. That's very good. Russell, we have CarolCohen.com. Now, I'm assuming, Carol, you are the brand of your business. That is that's very good too. That's a good way to use your domain. Nadine, you don't have a domain name yet, but that's okay. The name of your business is Beads of Essence. So you might want to look at a domain name that actually is your business name as well. Let's see, we have Store Resolve April. That's a good domain name. It kind of speaks to what your business is about. Now we also have, let's see, Ozetta. Let's see, Battered. What is that? Let's see. I'm sorry. What did that one say? Battered Sewing and Craft Lounge. Oh, Baltered? Is that what it is? Baltered Sewing and Craft Lounge. And I also will talk about how long your domain name should be as well. Very good. We have a few others, but also examples of current domains that you are using. Really appreciate you sharing that with me. So here's the good thing about using a domain rather than what we call, like, for example, a shared domain like sites.google.com, is that you can then attach a professional email address to that domain. And I hope that for those of you who do have a professional domain name that represents your business, that you are using an email address that contains your domain. So for example, rather than Stasia's Bakery 423 at gmail.com, you're using Stasia at stasiasbakery.com. So, and this is very important. This is where you can convey a lot of credibility to your business by using a professional email. I know a lot of us like to use our personal emails for business, or that, it might be a big hassle to connect your domain to your email. Google does a really good job of how to set that up. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But it's really important as a business owner that you use a professional email address with your domain. We call those domain emails. When you're sending out emails, for example, or your business cards, this really speaks to you being a step above the other business owners out there who are not using a professional domain. So I hope I encourage you to do that. So here's what we're going to be talking about. What is a domain name, how to choose one, how to register it with your name with Google Domains, how to build a website with Google Sites, and if in case you are wondering, Google has websites. Yes, Google does. And then how to set up that email for your business. And then I'll talk about some more resources that you can use. And then hopefully that'll set you off on the right direction if you have not selected a domain, or even if you're thinking about changing your domain name. So what is a domain? Think of your domain as your online address for the web. It's how people can visit your website. It's just like your address, your street address of your business, your house. This is how people will find you. And it's just as important as that. I like to think of the internet as a huge community of people and businesses, and the map is the internet, and your domain is how we can get to your location online. So when you think of a domain name and your website, we think of it through the URL. Your URL is the location. This is your address. This is where you reside on the great map of the internet. Your domain name can also have a couple of variations. Number one, it could be like, for example, www.statiasbakery.com. Nowadays, not necessary to use the www. It is, when you purchase a domain from Google or GoDaddy or any of the other name providers out there, it will automatically set up to you having the www dot whatever your domain name is after that. But in today's internet, not necessary to have that. And it also allows you to set up that at, for example, Stacia at statiasbakery.com. That is your email address. And of course, your website is your online store. So there again, you have your location, your store name, your email that people can, if you think of your phone, it's just like people picking up the phone, calling you, and your storefront. So those are the kind of the three major components of the domain. So you have your name that points to your website, the URL is the address, and that is the structure, the basic structure of that. So there are 4 reasons to register what we call a custom domain. When you look at Google's sites, for example, Google sites.google.com, that is a domain that's owned by Google. So all the websites that are built on that, and you may see it like, for example, with WordPress.com or Wix.com, where you can you can share that address with them rather than having your own professional domain. But the reasons why you want to register a custom domain for your business is number one, the search implications of that. So when I do a search for a particular topic, the search results are going to return um, the web pages that are associated with my search. And if your domain happens to have a keyword or two of what I'm searching for, then that's what's going to come up in the search results as well. So your URL, your domain are actually factors in ranking on Google. So that's very important. Number two, it's great for brand building with a custom domain. You're not lumped in with all the other websites on sites.google.com. You have, it conveys professionalism, and then you also have access to lots of tools out there. So when it comes to choosing a domain, let's look at a couple of areas here. Number one, the goal is good, but not perfect. An average domain name is better than no domain at all. And, like I said, you may not, when you first started your business, you may not have been able to select the exact domain name that you wanted. Maybe your competitors out there have pulled it in, or, it wasn't available. Domains are auctioned. It may cost a lot of money to purchase it. So there's lots of factors that can go into you not getting the exact domain that you want. But getting one that is close is better than not having one at all. So when you are considering choosing a domain or the right domain for your business, number one is you want to keep it short and simple. You want to use keywords and brand names in your domain. So, for example, if you're a real estate agent and you are your brand, then you would want to grab a domain with your name. Like I think it was Carol that did that. And if you have a product or service, you may want to include that service or that product name in your domain. And then, of course, you can choose alternate endings. Like, for example, who is that had the .fun, the Travelers? Let's see, what was that? That was really cool. Travelers Ranch Resort .fun. Look at alternate, they call those top level domain extensions. So, the most common one, of course, is .com. .org, which represents nonprofit organizations, .info. There are a ton of them out there. And if you can't find the .com version of your domain that you've selected, look at the alternatives. I really like Brenda's .fun. That's really cool. And that's a good way to kind of put your personality out there. So look at, there's .digital, there's .agency. There are tons of those. And you can find those by going to a domain registrar like GoDaddy or do a search on Google. You'll be able to find all kinds of alternatives to the .com and the .org. So I highly recommend that you take a look at that. So how long should a domain name be? Now, of course, the shorter a domain name is, the better. And like I said, if you're not able to find the .com version of your short, of your domain, look at those other extensions and you may be able to get in with a shortened version of it. But it should not exceed no more than 2 to 3 words. Long domains, unless they are catchy, are hard to remember. And again, if you can throw in a couple of keywords, like bakery, for example, would be a keyword in Stacey's example here, that works, and it doesn't have to be your business name. That's the other thing I want to point out. Does not have to be your business name. It could be some aspect of your business that would resonate with your audience. So if you're an accountant and you have accountant, Julia's an accountant.com or something like that, then that gives that recognition that you are an accountant. Or maybe it's paperwork.com or taxreturn.com or something like that. So think of how you can use certain terms, keywords, or phrases that are related to your business name that you could use as your domain. So again, you don't have to use your business name as your domain to be effective. Some other things you want to use when it comes to keywords is one really quick way to find out if you've got a good keyword you can include in your domain is to do a search on Google. Look at how that particular keyword ranks on a Google search, and look at how people are using those words. And if you see that there's a correlation between gaining a bigger or larger reach with a certain keyword that you can use in your domain, the more power to you, the better it will be in recognizing your brand when people are doing a search. So I highly recommend first looking at your business name as a potential domain name, but also look at the keywords that are most widely recognized by your audience that you could plug in as a domain as well. So when it comes to those alternative endings, like I was talking about before, here are just a couple of examples. Like, for example, beyond the .com. And we talked about, like, for example, like Academy or .zone. Google offers over 300 options, and most of the digital domain registrars have that too. So any alternative extension under the sun that represents several industries is there. So let's talk about registering a domain with Google Domains, for example. If you go to Google, you can just do a search for Google Domains, and then you can put in your proposed domains and see if they are available. Now, one of the things that always comes with a domain when you purchase a professional branded domain is you get the added value of being able to have a secure website. There are privacy mechanisms when you register a domain. For example, you can block important contact information or protect contact information. And the reason why this is important is because when you register a domain, it is public record knowledge. So I can go to GoDaddy, or I can go to a Google, I can go to Namecheap, for example, and I can do a search on your domain. And if it's not protected or doesn't have the privacy mechanisms implemented, I could see it will reveal to me your address, your phone number, your name, those kinds of things. So it's very important that when you're using a professional domain, that you implement these security measures, privacy measures, and then, of course, integrating with your website. And of course, there's clear pricing. So you're not sharing a domain like sites.google.com. You know that every year your domain is going to cost between $8 to $20, depending on what type of domain extension you select. So here's just an example of how you can do that on Google. You can just go to Google Domains. You could do a search. And then, of course, it give you an idea of what's available and the pricing. And then once you've added that to your cart, it becomes part of your Google account, which is a huge advantage. And then you have, for example, um, uh, you know how much it would cost you per year. And then as you check out and pay for it, I mean, it's just that simple. And you can own as many domains as you like. So one of the tactics that I highly recommend that you use is that, let's say, for example, you go for statiusbakery.com, but you also may want to secure statiusbakery.info, statiusbakery.net, statiusbakery.org, just so that you can protect from anyone else using your domain with one of the other extensions. Now, you don't have to go and buy all of the possible extensions out there that would represent your domain, but you may want to secure probably the most, like the .net, the .org, the .info, in order to really kind of lock it down. So I highly recommend that you do that. Now, if you are transferring a domain, which you can, now if you think about it in the same light, you know, the internet is the big map and you're at location, you know, statiusbakery.com, and you want to move to statiusplace.com, you can actually transfer your domains from one domain registrar to another. So for example, if I'm not happy with GoDaddy, and maybe their customer support isn't that great, I may want to move my domain to another registrar like Google, for example. You can do that with existing domains. Really easy to transfer into a Google domain. You can do it right from the same dashboard as you would use your other Google tools. So what do you do if your domain name is taken? And again, you can make small changes to that. A lot of times people will add a number, or for example, or some other identifier, maybe their state, you know, 2-digit code, or their zip code. There's a lot of ways you can adjust your domain if it's already taken to fit yours. Now, the thing about domain names too, is that domains are really a first come, first served basis. So whoever purchased that domain first owns it. Now, if they want to sell it or put it up for auction, that's their call. But there is no legal standing for you to, let's say somebody has your domain and you know they're using the same name as you are, but they bought the .com version and you bought the .info version. You don't have a real legal standing to sue them for that domain. It's first come, first served. So just as a bonus tip on that one, just make sure that you understand that. So when we go to activate your domain, you could go, like, for example, with Google Domains, you can go to domains.google, type in your domain name you want, check for the availability. And then once you have that, then you can move to a website. Now, all of you out there probably have a website, and that's great. You may be using Wix, WordPress. Just in the chat box real quick, tell me, what platform are you using to host your website, or what CMS are you using? Are you using WordPress? Are you using Wix? Are you using some of the others? Just put in the chat box real quick. I'd see WordPress. Jeffrey's using WordPress. Sylvia's using WordPress. Wix. Calista is using WordPress. Yes, so WordPress is one of the most common, most common content management systems out there to use to build websites. Wix is right up there. But Google also has a system where you can actually, through your Google account, build a website, and those are called Google Sites. And these are just as comparable as a Wix website or a WordPress website. The really cool thing about building a website on Google Sites is that, of course, it's owned by Google. So you're going to get a little Google love when it comes to indexing that website. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Google Sites is also a great alternative. Like, for example, if you wanted to build landing pages for your business, or have, like, for example, what I call sometimes those microsites where you would want to showcase maybe a particular part of your service or product, then you can use a free tool like Google Sites to do that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So when it comes to Google Sites, you can just do a search on Google, just type in Google Sites, and then you'll come here. And Google Sites is, like I said, it's a platform just like Wix or WordPress.com. It's not, it's not a self-hosted deal where you have a specific website host. Google is your host. But this is where you can really get into, if you want to practice building your website, Google Sites would be a great place to kind of build that prototype. There's no hosting fees involved. You can add your domain name to it. You can use it to you can have others who may be working on your site. They could have access to it too. If they're on your team, Google Sites are mobile responsive. You don't have to worry about how they would look on a tablet or a phone. And it's really no programming knowledge needed to create a site. It's one of those what you see is what you get kind of editors. And it's really simple to get started. So you can actually connect your Google domain to, or any domain, not necessarily a Google domain, but if you had a domain on GoDaddy, you can connect it to your Google site. So if you're looking at a cost-cutting measure, especially if you're just starting out in business, this would be an awesome place to start. And as you go through this process, you'll see what I'm talking about. There are Google Sites come with a variety of templates that are all customizable. So just like other platforms, Google has that ability to create templated websites based on your business category, what type of activity. Like I said, a lot of businesses use Google Sites as a way to create landing pages. And then when you get into that Google interface, you can see that basically you have your page, and then on the right-hand side, you have the elements used to build your website. And it's all drag and drop. So you can add and upload files and videos. And if you'd like, for example, if you have a Google Business Suite or Google Workplace account, you can link to, let's say, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, YouTube. All of that is all Google products can be connected to your Google site in a very easy manner. So you can do that. So like, for example, then once you've got your site created, you just can simply share or publish that site. Now, in this example, where we're just using the Google sites.google.com/view/Stacia's Bakery, that is the shared domain. So that's the Google domain. And then, but once you publish that, then it's live, it's out there on the internet. Google takes care of all the security, all the maintenance, all of the updates and everything like that. You don't have to worry about that. And then, of course, if you have got other people on your team, maybe you have somebody across the country that works with you that could build your website, then they can have access to it as well. And then here's just a couple of tips when it comes to important elements of your website. Number one, your website should be goal-oriented. You should always make it very clear about what your website is about. You need to organize your website pages. Like, for example, once I build my website, I could have uh, sections of my website like bakery menu, services, top 10 cakes, and an image gallery or something like that. So when you think of putting your website together, one of the things we do is we map it out. We map out the homepage. Then we put together, and we use PowerPoint and other tools to do this, but you could just put a block, and build that hierarchy for your website. What are the main pages? What are the sub pages? And then once you've got that structure, then you can include that in the menu. And then that makes your website well organized. And it also helps Google rank your website based on how your website is structured. So it's very important to do that. So if you need any help, especially with Google Sites, I highly recommend that you play around with Google Sites. Jump in there, create a couple pages, add some photos. It could be also a great way to, like I said, have a showcase for a particular service or a particular product you may be selling to augment what you already have. Like, so if you have a Wix website and you have a WordPress website, building a Google landing page, for example, can really help you when it comes to having just a free resource to do things like that. So activity is you could potentially build a website in 3 minutes. So again, I highly recommend that you at least try it out. You never know what you might be able to come up with when it comes to that. And there may be specific marketing campaigns that you want to undertake where you want to drive people to a specific landing page. And rather than go through some of the cumbersome things like removing the header or the footer from your website so that you can display a nice clean landing page, just go to Google Sites and do that. So we talked a little bit about websites, a little bit about domains. Now I have talked about email, but let me talk about the importance of having that email presence. And of course, email forwarding lets you create extra emails. Now, one of the things that comes with your Google Workspace is if you are purchasing, let's say you're either using Google domains or you're using Google Workspace, you can create multiple what we call email aliases. And those are email addresses that all point to one email inbox. So let's say, for example, you have let's say mine, John at tedigitalmarketing.com. Well, I have an alias that says sales at tedigitalmarketing.com or info at tedigitalmarketing.com. These all point to my inbox at John at tedigitalmarketing.com. So even though I have just one email inbox, I can have several email addresses that point to that inbox. And in Google Domains, you can create up to 100 of those. And most domain providers give you the ability to create multiple aliases. So I highly recommend that you do that, especially if you are a one-person show and you want to project that image of being a larger company. So you may use sales, for example, or products at, for example, then that gives you it gives the impression that you may be a larger company than you actually are, because you have different departments and every department has its own email address. So it's really easy to create a forwarding email in Google Domains. You just put in whatever the alias name is, and then you can say, hey, point it to that particular inbox. And then if you sign up for Google Workspace, which is a professional version of Gmail and all of the other Google tools, but it's all tied to your domain. This is another low-cost way to have kind of everything under one roof. So if you have a Google Workspace account, and I think they're running about, depending on what plan you get and how many people you have that you want to set up this way, it can run you as low as $12 per month per person. And that's just to have all the Google tools in one place, but branded under your domain. So Gmail, the calendar, Google Meet, Chat, Drive, Docs, all the tools that you may be using already in your personal Gmail account, you can use the exact same tools, but under a business account, which is very powerful. So the other thing about your email address is that, of course, totally customizable to what you want it to be. And then as far as using it in your emails and your other communications, your print, all of that is there for you to set up. So I just want to review a couple of resources with you and a couple of takeaways. So number one, make sure you select a domain name that reflects your business. This is going to be, this is your introduction, your opportunity to make that good first impression with a potential client when they see you using a professional domain. Choose a domain that fits your situation, your business, your brand. Don't be afraid to use keywords in your domains and look at alternative endings. Register a domain name at Google Domains. Build a website. Again, use Google Sites. It's really cool. Very easy to create a website really quickly. I like to use them for landing pages when I'm doing particular social media campaigns or email marketing campaigns. Awesome tool to use to help you build out your brand. And of course, then using that professional email. So I hope that is helpful. Another huge tip and a Google tool that I highly recommend you connect your website to, whether it is a Google website or you've got it on Wix or WordPress, is that you connect your website to Google Search Console. And you can get there by going to g.co/search console. And the Search Console will give you some insights. Now, we have talked about Google Analytics in the past to be able to track website activity and visitors. But Google Search Console gives you the ability to see how people are finding you online. Are they using certain keywords? Are pages of your website coming up when people are putting in certain keywords? How many searches does how many searches does your content come up with? I mean, to me, this is a very insightful tool to have. And again, it's free because it's a Google tool. So getting the insights on how your website is performing against Google search results is a very good way to understand your audience, how people are finding you, what keywords they're using to find content on your website, and to get your website indexed on Google. That is probably one of the most important things to use that Google Search Console for. And then, of course, Google Analytics. If you have not been aware of the changes with Google Analytics, Google Analytics has definitely changed. Now we're on Google Analytics 4, totally different interface than the old version of Google Analytics. In fact, all new accounts that are being created now are being created with Google Analytics 4. I'm going to be doing a workshop on that one because that is very important, just because of the huge difference in previous versions of Google Analytics and what it looks like now. And then if you are you want to get more insight onto how to use the Google tools together and how to really kind of build your online presence with one system, then I highly recommend you go to the Grow with Google YouTube channel where you can see all of that. And of course, Google provides career education on all of these topics, whether it be data analytics, IT support. So if you've got people on your team that you would like to get them some additional training, Google certifications are an important industry tool that you can use as well. And of course, there's free online training available. No matter what industry or niche you are in, you will be able to tap into all this free training with Google. And that's an old slide, so I'll skip that. But what I just would like to say, thank you for attending. I know this was really a short presentation on a couple of really just key things that I just like to bring to everyone's attention every now and then. Again, my name is John Walker. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions at all about domains, emails, that kind of thing, I'm more than happy to address those. And let me get to a couple of your questions. So first we have, what are the do's and don'ts when attempting to purchase a domain from various parties, be it GoDaddy that require you to pay a good amount to just have their own, they have their own broker to go to work for you to probably make more money or commissions. Let's see, we pay the domain seller or other ways to acquire domains. That's a really good question. I try to avoid going the domain name broker route just because it is very expensive. That's why I like to look at the alternatives to the .com. So, if you have 300 other possible combinations that you can use that domain name ending to your, to what you select as your domain, I would rather go that way. It'd be a lot more cheap, but be a lot cheaper to do that than to go the broker route. Now, if you are dead set on and you think it's if you think it would be worth it for you to purchase a domain name through a broker that someone else has already purchased, then of course you got to do what's best for your business. I really believe that. But I think there's so many alternatives out there that you don't have to go through the domain broker route. It says, what is the maximum number of domain name endings that you can redirect to your .com? And what about the other different domain names that we choose to redirect? That is also a good question. When it comes to having, like I said, if you buy .net, .com, .org versions of your domain, you may want to point, let's say, the .info domain to your .com. Well, here is the rub on that. When it comes to redirecting domains, as you probably will see, that Google only will index the content from one domain. So if you purchase another domain name and you want to redirect it, maybe for marketing purposes or something like that, then yes, I could see the value in doing that. That's why a tool like Google Sites can come into handy. Let's say I have a campaign I'm running and I want to use statiasbakery.info to point to maybe my ingredients menu. And I set up a Google page or a Google site to have that. Then I may want to point that domain name there. That would be the only kind of real practical use of redirecting domains, because really Google's only going to index one version of that. So keep that in mind. You only get, you can only redirect a number of domain names for the purpose of maybe alternative marketing, but I wouldn't bank on Google indexing the exact same content for multiple domains. So I would stay clear of the redirecting piece. So Nadine asks, do you have to use an additional site once you purchase from Google? No, you don't. You can, like I said, you can have a Wix website. You can have a Google site if you want to do landing pages, for example. But that's another, like I said, that would be a good use of securing your domain name in one of the other alternative extensions. So look at it like that, and I think you'll be fine, Nadine. Are there any other questions? Jeffrey, I've been thinking about setting up my website online store with WooCommerce because I use Linux and I've heard good things about it. Do Google tools include what I need to set up a store? Great question. And the answer to that in a roundabout way is yes, but it would include you integrating other tools that would work with the Google site. If you're really into building an e-commerce solution, I would recommend using WooCommerce or some of the other website tools out there that are specific to e-commerce because they have the whole credit card processing, transactions, and things like that. So I really, for Google sites, if you just wanted to get up, hit the ground running, create a real simple website that you could showcase your products and services, do landing pages, that kind of thing, then yes, I would use Google. But if I were doing some intensive online sales, selling my product online, people can purchase, create accounts, that kind of thing, then I would use one of the other tools like WooCommerce or BigCommerce or any of the number of tools out there to do e-commerce website. All righty. Well, I think that is all, unless there are other questions. Let me check the questions one more time. Oh, how much money does one save with hosting fees by using Google Sites as the domain registrar and host? That is a really good question. So when it comes to Google Sites, like I said, it doesn't cost anything to create a website when you're using the sites.google.com. You just want to create a page, you're using that shared domain. When you add a domain to it and you publish that website on that domain, then there is a small fee that goes with that. So for example, it could be, I think it ranges from as little as $9 a month to $12. It really depends on that setup, but it's not as expensive as other places when it comes to hosting fees. I think it's rather on the low end, but yes, as soon as you add your professional domain to your Google site, they will ask you to pay a small fee for that. Any other questions? So if there aren't any other questions, I will just leave you with this. If you'd like to sign up for a free mentoring session with one of our SCORE counselors, or mentors, please visit us at score.org/Treasure Valley/local mentors. Get on our schedule. October is already filling up fast. So if you are in need of some good business advice, sign up for a mentoring session. And another tool that you could use when you're using your Google Sites, your Google profile, is the reviews. And I would appreciate it. Here's a link and here's a QR code. If you thought today's presentation was helpful, leave us a review on our Google Business profile by scanning this QR code. Really simple to do. Be a good example of how you could use Google reviews. As you know, Google reviews are very important. Very important when it comes to local SEO and local ranking. So check it out, scan the QR code, and leave us a review. Let me know what you thought of this presentation. I give all this feedback to Google so that maybe we can improve things. But I really appreciate your time and attention today, and wish you the best of luck in your business and marketing. And we will see you next time. Thank you.